Welcome to the FTN NBA Podcast with your hosts, Adam Pfeifer, Joe Metz, and Zac Graham. Presented by the FTN Network. Bringing you the analysis you need on breaking news, betting markets, and your fantasy lineups.
Welcome back, everybody. After a brief hiatus, the FTN NBA Podcast back on the airwaves. Adam Pfeifer here alongside Zac Graham, Mr. Kawhisenberg himself, and married man Joe Metz back in the fold here. Joe married recently, finally. He had to deal with a bunch of busyness and hectic stuff, but congratulations, Joe. Welcome back. Happy for you, buddy. What's going on, Zac? You can chill for a minute because we got to get the married man in here to talk about his eventful day. What's up, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. I'm glad to be back. Lifestyle hasn't changed much, but it feels like the monkey's off my back. I can actually sit back and relax. Spent my car ride to and from work listening to the latest FTN Datacast with the mock draft phenomenal stuff, and I am now watching the Bucks Celtics game as we are recording this podcast and obviously podcast for Tuesday. But life is good right now, man. Bucks up 2-1 in the series. Hope to make it 3-1 tonight.
Yeah, again, happy for you. The pictures, the video, all that stuff looked a great time. Josh Klotchie was there. Elliot Chris was there. George was there. So it must have been a great time. Zac, I feel like I haven't talked to you in a little bit because I've had stuff happen on streams where we're scheduled and I haven't been able to make it. Luckily, Alex Blickel, I believe, filled in twice. Always great to have great coworkers, but caught the stream with you and Eddie today on Monday night. And yeah, man, like basketball, it's pretty eventful right now.
Yeah, man.
It's the best time of year.
It's the playoffs, right? First of all, congrats, Joe. Obviously, long time coming. I think you were, I believe, engaged when we met like 18 months ago or something. Or maybe
right,
it was
roughly.
Shortly after.
I got engaged like shortly after FTN launched. Like FTN launched in summer. I got engaged that winter.
Yeah. So I think I've called Serena your wife before on live streams,
right,
like by accident and things like that.
Right.
So like now that I can actually say that and it's accurate, it's great, man. Happy for you guys. I guess my only gripe is that, I see all these pictures of Josh Klotchie, Elliot, George. No Adam Pfeifer, no Zac Graham at the wedding, man. That's I don't know.
So I ran all of the invites by George because he designed everything, sent it all out.
Uh-huh.
He told me he lost them in the mail. I don't know. This is all.
To be fair, probably would have been past my bedtime. So
also true. True.
Yeah.
Your booster seat would have come in handy for Josh, though. That's for sure.
I was gonna say, yeah.
It's just good to be back with you guys, and we haven't.
Yeah, I
don't think we've done a pod in 3 weeks. It was like the first or second day of the first round, so excited to kind of recap that with you guys and talk about. We're in the middle of the second round now, so a lot to cover. I'm just glad we're back.
Yeah. So basically today, again, we haven't pod like Zac said in a couple weeks. We've had the first round come and gone. And basically, we're going to recap, some of the takeaways from the first round, talk about the remaining, playoff schedule and what we think might happen. And then we get the news this morning, of course, Nikola Jokic, back-to-back MVPs. And there's zero debate about the MVP going on right now, in case you're wondering. Like, it's pretty clear that this is, but in all seriousness, all three of us, I believe when we did our award show, we all selected Jokic to win MVP. Look,
yep.
Obviously, a lot of Philadelphia fans feel like Embiid was robbed. I wouldn't say Embiid was robbed because it's not like if they would have given it to DeMar DeRozan or Devin Booker or Ja Morant, okay, Embiid's robbed. Honestly, if they gave it to anybody other than Giannis or Jokic, Embiid would have been robbed. But like, let's not act like Jokic didn't deserve the MVP. Like he's had an unbelievable season. I would have loved to see Embiid win it personally, just because like I love Embiid and I think he does deserve it. But at the same time, so does Jokic. So we won't spend too much time on this because we talked about it a lot. But I'll start with you, Joe. Thoughts on the MVP award? Like, is it just that cut and dry? Like both players deserved it, but Jokic got the edge?
Yeah, I have no gripe with it. I think actually it was obviously the three-headed race between Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis. I think you could have made a case for all three. I don't think if any of the three won, the other two would have been robbed. I think all three in, not that this season was abnormal, but I think in terms of like historical outliers, I think we had more. I think we had Giannis improve on what year over year has already been career best season. He's continued to improve. Embiid had the best season of his career. Jokic posted a statistically historical season. It was just kind of all the perfect storm, where it came down to being the right player at the right time. I think we saw as Embiid, the Sixers acquired Harden. Embiid slowed down a little bit, missed some time, lost some battles to other MVP candidates like Giannis, and lost some important games. Jokic swept in and had some of his best statistical production towards the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. I think that's ultimately what sealed it. Like, I think if you look back at the last 6 weeks of the season, I think whoever would have had the most dominant stretch would have won MVP, and it was Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, and like Zach, like again, 99.9% of the time, Embiid puts the season together that he had, he wins the MVP award. This just happened to be a year where not just Jokic had like an historic season, but like Giannis was amazing too. So like I feel for Philadelphia fans because like I will say I wanted Embiid to win. Like we all expected Jokic to win, right? I don't think any of us were surprised by this. I did want Embiid to win. But at the end of the day, like you can't just sit here and say Jokic didn't deserve it. And then there's like talking about like the advanced stats, and everybody's like not a fan of these advanced stats, and just like they're 3 of the 7 best players in basketball. Like they all deserve to win. It's just maybe they should have had co-MVPs. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I think I'm with you like with the Philly fans. Like I am pretty amused to watch them freak out all over again this morning. Like they didn't know this was coming. I guess a lot of them were just lying to themselves that Embiid would somehow pull this out. I mean, just cherry picking whatever players or talking heads say that Embiid is their MVP and like retweeting all of those and using that as justification. Like, oh, Kalea Copper said that Joel Embiid is the MVP. Oh, Kendrick Perkins said Joel Embiid is the MVP. So look, everybody, there it is. These people said it. Okay. Again, I do understand their plight. Like Philly hasn't had a ton to cheer for on the basketball side in the last few decades. So, and to your point, Adam, we were talking about it in the Slack earlier this morning. Like 9 out of 10 times Embiid puts up that season, he wins the MVP going away, I think. And we talked about it on the awards pod, right? I think all 3 of us had Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, top 3. And I think all 3 of us would have been fine with any of those guys winning it. I just think Jokic was the most deserving. And it is funny to see people too. Whenever somebody gripes about advanced stats, it's just like, either it's like it doesn't fit your narrative or you just don't understand what they mean.
Right.
So like, again, that all 3 of those guys had fantastic seasons. Record breaking, I think, historic in certain aspects for all 3 of them. Jokic was just the best one. Like all people taking all these shots at Jokic, like, oh, he's at home. Right. He didn't make it out of the first round. Okay, so it's
a regular season award.
Take players 2 and 3. Well, yes, that number 1, but also take players 2 and 3, whoever you think that is, Harden, Harris, Maxey, whatever, off of the Sixers. Are the Sixers making it out of the first round?
Absolutely not.
I don't think so against that Raptors team, assuming the Raptors were healthy through, they had Fred and Scotty doesn't go down, etc. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's funny to see people just grasping at straws, trying to justify the idea that Embiid should have won.
I saw somebody take, because again, I'm in the PA area. So like I have a lot of Sixers fans as friends. I saw somebody today. I don't know this person. It was just like on a thread. I saw somebody say they pointed out Denver has better role players than Philly. I'm like, excuse me?
Who said that? Find them, block them, mute them.
I don't know who the person is, but that's what I came across today.
Argument today, and the argument, I didn't mention Jokic, but it was something to the effect of, look at how poorly this Philly team played without Embiid this season. It should illustrate just how deserving of the MVP Embiid is. And like, I understand the argument. Obviously the team's worse without Embiid. He's their best player. Dear Lord, like you're going to tell me right now you'd be more confident with Aaron Gordon and Will Barton leading your team than you would be with Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, James Harden. Like there's just no logical argument to that. It's like Zach said, it's grasping at straws. It's become a cultural norm in our society when something doesn't go someone's way. But I think, unfortunately, what should happen is people should rest easy saying, okay, the voters got this one right. Mm-hmm. It was like, this is a situation where you kind of just sit there and say, you know what, like Nikola Jokic got the better of it. Like Embiid had a phenomenal season. Nobody arguing for Nikola Jokic is discounting the season Joel Embiid had.
Right.
And I think that's important because he had the best season of his career. We might not see him have this season.
And if they are, they're just wrong.
Right. Right. Because like at the end of the day, you don't want you want to talk about advanced stats, or you don't want to talk about advanced stats, I should say. Like with players this close in a race, if you have to separate them, you have to dive deeper. And this was probably 2 weeks prior to the end of the regular season. I don't know what site posted like the glossary of NBA advanced stats. This was probably a 30 stat laundry list. Mm-hmm. Jokic led probably 80% of them with Embiid and Giannis mixed in the rest. Like it wasn't even, you don't have to know what all of it means. You don't have to know every single stat, but it just illustrates like he was just that dominant for the entirety of the season. And the endurance he showed is another factor in his favor. So I don't have any gripe with it. I know you guys don't, and I don't think anyone should.
Well, didn't Jokic said, like, I understand that the Sixers without Joel Embiid are a much worse team. Like, I don't know where they would stack up in the East. Maybe they're a playing team. Maybe
there's a reason why there's a reason why Embiid went from out to doubtful to questionable to playing game 3 and then obviously game 4.
Broken face and an injured thumb.
He watched what that team was without it.
But Nikola Jokic, I may be wrong, but I believe I saw that he set the net rating record for on-off for a full season. Like, he is legitimately, historically, the most necessary player.
He's, by definition, the most valuable player in the NBA.
And again, and like, if you have Jamal Murray and MPJ, he may not be the MVP. I guess I don't know if I'm going out on a limb to say he probably would not be the MVP because I don't think his stats would reflect the type of season he had if he has those two, one all-star caliber guard and a very good swingman in Michael Porter. I won't call him all-star caliber quite yet. But yeah, it was just, it's always a fun day when the awards break, you know, especially MVP,
especially when you're on stream during the Rookie of the Year announcement.
Might have been the highlight of my 2-year FTN career was just, you saw Adam's soul leave a lifeless body behind the camera.
Speaking of MVP,
there was also another award announced.
What, Monty Williams?
Yeah, well deserved. Argue. I think he should have won it last year. Instead, it was a coach that runs his players into the ground until they get hurt.
Did they come out with the actual results? I'm assuming it was Monty in first, and then Taylor Jenkins number 2, and Spoelstra.
Correct. I'm sure you got it. Udoka 4th, Bickerstaff 5th.
I was gonna say Bickerstaff will be out there. Okay.
Got some love. All right.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriately accurate ranking or voting tier.
Yeah, but then what happens? Say Memphis somehow beats Golden State and then Phoenix loses to Dallas. That means the award was wrong, right? By logic, that's how it works. Because Monty Williams will now be home. Right. Will now be home instead. No, but Monty Williams is awesome. All right, let's move on and kind of recap some of these first round series before we get into the series that we have right now. And again, speaking of like MVP stat lines, I think Giannis has like 11 or 12 rebounds with 2.5 minutes left in the half. So, he's good at basketball. But all right, Zach, let's start with you. Most interesting, surprising, whatever. Like, what was your takeaway from any series that stood out to you in the first round? Was it Brooklyn getting swept? Was it Kevin Durant kind of disappearing? Was it the Utah Jazz showing that once again they are a regular season team? What stood out to you from the opening round of the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's kind of split here out of the 4 teams that lost. I think Toronto, Denver, Minnesota, New Orleans have a lot to look forward to, a lot to be hopeful for in the coming, not just season, but seasons, plural. And I think the other 4, Brooklyn, Atlanta, Chicago, and Utah, have some big questions and or concerns going into the offseason. Obviously, I think the low-hanging fruit is the Brooklyn sweep, right? Like, I don't think the score of the series being 4-0 was indicative of how competitive those games really were, right? I think it was separated by 18 total points, I think, those 4 games.
Which, that is uncanny. That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, it's a credit to the Celtics. Obviously, the Tatum play at the end, which I think we actually talked about on the last pod because that was the first day of the playoffs.
That was the last pod. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, Brooklyn, obviously, Ben Simmons, that whole saga obviously continues to add chapters. Had back surgery or will have it very shortly. Supposed to be back for training camp. So I think they have to stand pat, but like Kyrie, I believe, is up, right? They gotta figure out the rest of the pieces because those pieces clearly were not working as long as we didn't see Ben Simmons. But I really think that the most interesting of those 4 teams that I think have legitimate concerns here is Utah. It seems like the Gobert-Donovan Mitchell relationship has finally come to its breaking point. We know those guys have butted heads before. They're not best friends. You don't have to be best friends, in my opinion, to win a title, whether you're the best player and the second best player or the best player and the 12th guy. But
I mean, look at Kobe and Shaq in their Lakers prime.
Right.
They hated each other, right?
But and we're certainly not making the comparison of these two to Kobe and Shaq, but just to illustrate, right?
Gobert thinks he can cover Shaq, though. So
we will talk about Shaq shortly.
So I think that this team is just going to look drastically different come next season. It'll be interesting to see which one they choose. I think it should be Donovan Mitchell. Fast Eddie Fear and myself got into a very spirited debate where I was, I think, literally yelling at him about how I don't think you can win a title with Rudy Gobert. But that's just a very interesting situation to watch now that team is run by Danny Ainge, because we know Danny Ainge is not afraid to make some trades to move on from guys or go in a different direction. So I'm very interested to watch the Jazz in this offseason and see if they can really salvage this or if they kind of go into the tank, right, and really try to rebuild. And there's some questions on the Bulls and Hawks too, but I've been going too long here on the Nets and Jazz, and I think those are the two most important teams to watch out of the 4 in the offseason.
Do we have final numbers on how many passes Donovan Mitchell made to Gobert in that series? Because I
made that one important one at the end, man, the game winner. That was nice. That was nice. And that was the most surprising thing about it.
Oh, yeah, Joe, it's definitely single digits. What do you think about the Jazz and any other standouts from the first round of the playoffs? I think the Pelicans were a nice, surprise pushing Phoenix. I know they were without Devin Booker for a little bit, but they played pretty well. And obviously we'll see what happens to Zion. And then Luka getting out of the first round. It's always fun.
And he's
my guy on his way.
I mean, for me, I'll touch on the Jazz shortly because I do think that's my biggest takeaway in terms of teams I'm concerned about. I think teams I'm most that should be walking away from that first round. Yeah, they got bounced, but should be most optimistic is New Orleans. You hope you get Zion back, but a series where you did battle back and forth with the best regular season team, Brandon Ingram really asserted himself as a player who really can put a team on his back and win you games. CJ McCollum showed the same level of offensive versatility that we saw for the last few weeks of the regular season, albeit with Brandon Ingram on the court. And I think it should just bode confidence in these guys that, like, hey, there were zero expectations for them coming out of the play-in. Zero. The masses were projecting a sweep, if not a 5-game series loss. I think the experience is invaluable. This is still a very young team. I think you now have a core you build around. I think you have, after this season and postseason, you have players who you may not have expected to be significant pieces of your rotation, a la Jose Alvarado, has made a name for himself. As much as Chris Paul wants to deny he knows how to pronounce his name. I think they have an encouraging amount of assets to build around in New Orleans, and I think the future is bright. Ideally with Zion, but I think if things go as, say, worst case scenario, Zion doesn't play again, which I don't think will be the case, but for the sake of the argument, worst case scenario, he doesn't play again. I think they can be rest assured knowing that, hey, there is still reason for optimism with the team we have right now. On the flip side, Utah, like we knew going into this year that they were typically a regular season juggernaut, but what concerned me this year was the fact that like the games without Luka, they just completely folded. They didn't take it. Like these should have been games where if you are the juggernaut you think you are, if you are a team with one of, over the last 3 years, the best playoff performers in basketball and Donovan Mitchell, you should be putting these teams away and slamming the door. Instead, you're allowing 30-plus left and right to Spencer Dinwiddie and Jalen Brunson. Reggie Bullock's hitting every corner.
40 to Jalen Brunson.
40 to Jalen Brunson. Maxi Kleber's hitting 8-9 threes. Like, they're getting beat, and this is no discredit to Jalen Brunson because he is going to get a bag this offseason. But the rest of this team, like, you're getting torched by role players, and you just kind of fold. Like, this Utah team is really in the playoffs. It's Donovan Mitchell or bust. He's been top 3 to 5 in the NBA in usage rate or points per game in the playoffs the last 3 seasons. 2 of those, he's led the league. This was the outlier. So he's quite literally had to do it all for this team. We saw Bojan have that really hot, was it game 1 or game 2? He went off.
I think it was game 1.
But Mike Conley really, really, I think age is starting to rear its head for Mike Conley. He showed some flashes, but if anything, he just showed a steady decline throughout the series. Gobert, and I will continue to bang this drum. Just there's zero defensive versatility, and Dallas took complete advantage. Jalen Brunson made him look like a fool. I mean, you have JaVale McGee picking guys' pockets and going coast to coast, dunking the basketball. Gobert could never do that. Gobert can't dribble a basketball. Like, it's going to be very hard with him as your quote-unquote number 2 to do anything in the playoffs. And I think that's the issue they're running into, which leads to the next issue of, like, is a team really going to want to take on his contract? It's going to be easier for them to move Donovan Mitchell because I don't think, yes, he's a very strong defensive presence in the low post, one of the best in the league. I won't deny that. But outside of that, where does he really bring you winning value? He's not a great offensive player in the pick and roll. He can't defend the pick and roll. He can't defend and switch. He's an awful player in switches. He can't play back to the basket. He has no mid-range game. He's an average at best free throw shooter. Like, there are too many red flags for a $200 million player for a team to really give up draft capital and assets to invest in him as a player they want on their championship team. Whereas Donovan Mitchell has proven that when the games are the most important, he can rise to the occasion. We saw it in the Denver series in the playoffs in 2021. He went back and forth with Jamal Murray. I think we saw it to a lesser effect this year. His efficiency was pretty bad in the playoffs, but then again, he was the only one doing anything. But again, consistently, he's been up there and leading the league in points per game and usage per game in the playoffs. He's a player that rises to the occasion that is going to be appealing to anyone in the league far more so than Rudy Gobert. So this team is going to blow it up. I don't know how, but you have to think in terms of this core. We saw the end of it last week.
I think the craziest thing about the Jazz this season in the front office was the fact that they made multiple moves, which really isn't in that franchise's DNA. Some of it was kind of forced, right? You had Joe Ingles on the expiring.
Sure,
he goes down with the ACL. You got to try to get what you can. They got jack shit out of the trades that
nothing.
You got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who can court for them.
He was a DMP for probably 70% of the games.
Right, they were playing Daniel House.
At least. Well, and that's the thing is the best move they made during the season was picking up Daniel House off the scrap heap, who was on the Knicks earlier this year. He couldn't get on the court for them. And then by the end of that series, Daniel House was the best defender on the court for those guys.
Right.
They're in a tough spot. To derail us for 10 seconds here, Steve Kerr not coaching tonight, COVID.
Yeah, I saw that.
So Mike Brown, now the head coach of 2 teams currently in the NBA, got hired by the Kings this morning, coaching the Warriors tonight.
Very interesting.
So looking at this Jazz team, I pulled up their team, the payroll, and the length of the contracts. They have just Gobert and Donovan Mitchell through 2025, 2026. Donovan Mitchell in 2025-26 is making $37 million. That's not bad considering the direction the cap's going, considering the trajectory of his career. That same year, Rudy Gobert was making $46 million, almost $10 million more than Donovan Mitchell. That's not good.
That's a player option too. Ugh.
Yeah. Mike Conley is making, he has, after this season, 2 more years, $22.6 mil, $24.3 mil. They have 1 more year of Bojan, just under $20 mil. They've got a year and an option left of Clarkson. Then they've got like Royce O'Neal under 10 mil for 2 years. But like, they have a lot of expiring deals this year. But the expiring deals are all 2.4 million or less. Like, they do not have any cap to move around this offseason. I don't know what they do. Yeah,
I mean, you got to ship one of those top 2 guys.
You have to, and then
like I honestly think like
it has to be Donovan Mitchell. Like, it has to be.
I think it has to be both.
You think?
Yikes.
I mean, the thing is, like, if you're going to ship one, Mitchell will get you the best return.
Yes.
You also know, like, bringing someone, like, hypothetically, you ship Donovan Mitchell off to a team where you can acquire draft capital. Like, it's not going to be Oklahoma City, but for the sake of the example, New York, Oklahoma City, the teams with draft capital, I think going to draft a player, but, like, anyone you draft to build a team around, like, Rudy Gobert's still going to be that number 2, so you're still going to be in the same spot you were before, because that player is not going to be better than Donovan Mitchell is right now. So, like, I think I agree. I think you've taught, like,
damn it, Zach, get on the trade machine.
I'll cook something up because, and here's what's going to happen first, and it might be a 3-4 team deal if we're going to ship both out at once. But Joe, you said OKC. I agree. I don't think Donovan Mitchell. I don't think that's the move for them.
It was more so the sake of a team with a massive amount of draft capital. But
what about Rudy Gobert? Is that not like the perfect place off the top of your head?
The team.
I mean, they were in talks about Dallas, there was rumors about Oklahoma City taking on Tobias Harris's contract. Why not Rudy Gobert's contract?
Because Tobias Harris can do more for you than Rudy Gobert.
I mean, putting Rudy Gobert with those young guys, with the Giddey SGA backcourt, Trey Mann off the bench, some of those other guys we saw this year, Basley will still be there, etc. Like, you're gonna start winning games. And if OKC wants to, maybe next year is the time, right? Where if you trade for Gobert, you've got those young guards, you're pushing for that 8 seed, or at the very least a play. Like, you have Rudy Gobert, I think you're going to win 45 games probably, just because he is a guy that will help you rack up regular season wins. Said it multiple times before. I don't think he gets you wins in May and in particularly in June, but that's not the trajectory of the Thunder over the next 1 or 2 years. I don't think Presti's thinking he can contend in the next 18 months. Maybe I'm wrong there, but like, to me, that's a trade you can make with the immense draft capital you have. It's going to attract Utah, that you can throw as many picks as you want at them. And then you start winning some games, which is the next step you have to take. And how many years are we pushing that out? Like, Presti has already gone, I think, further than I certainly thought he would with this accumulate every draft pick in the league. You got to use them at some point. I think trading for Rudy Gobert, like you said, Joe, like, they need draft capital back if you're going to blow it up. So I don't know. Sure. Let's see what I can cook up as we continue on here.
All right, let's anything else from the first round, or do you want to get into the second round of games? Obviously all these series are pretty interesting right now. We have, Philadelphia, Miami 2-2 after the return of Joel Embiid. We have Milwaukee up 2-1 over Boston with this game 4 at halftime right now. Obviously 2-1 in favor of Golden State, with that game kicking off later on today. No Ja Morant for Memphis, most likely. So that'll be interesting if Memphis, Twitter's going to be fun if Memphis wins without Ja Morant again. I mean, we know where that's going to go. For me, I think the most interesting series has probably been that Memphis series, just because we've seen, players get, we've seen injuries, we've seen flagrant fouls, we've seen suspensions, and now another injury with Ja Morant. So we've seen players in and out of the lineup that we really have had. Draymond was out game 1. We had Dylan Brooks out for game 3. And then Gary Payton obviously out most of game 2 because of it. So we've had, and then Ja's going to be out game 4, it looks like. So we've had a significant player out for each team in every game. So I think that's been the most interesting series to me. Plus, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s kind of been not fouling as much, so that's always interesting. I think that, and then the Philadelphia series have been the two most interesting to me because it looked like Miami was going to go up 3-0 with Embiid likely out for game 3. He gets, there's a report that he's feeling better. He might play. Then he does play. And you can just see the massive shift. Obviously, we talked about how important he is during the MVP discussion, but like just in game 2 alone or game 3 alone, Bam couldn't do anything. Like the last 2 games, the meme from the bubble of Jimmy Butler being exhausted, that's been the Miami Heat. He has been absolutely carrying that team the last 2 games, and they've lost both, and now they have to go back home instead of being up 3-0, 3-1. It's tied 2-2. Joe, what do you think of that? What do you think of both those series too? Because I think, at least to me, and you talk about any other series you want, they've been the two most interesting to me. I'm sure you'll disagree and say the Milwaukee series is, but
yeah, from a fan standpoint, but like I think overall, and we can talk about it more. It's been highlighted in the Milwaukee series. I also think it's been highlighted in the Golden State and Memphis series. So that's where I'll go. I think the officiating overall in the postseason has been awful. The amount of reviews just slowing the game down, but also, I understand their desire to crack down on flagrant fouls. Anytime there's any contact above the shoulder area, it goes to review. I understand that. But the line seems to have been skewed, and we have too much of a gray area now between what is an incidental basketball play and what is excessive content with potential for intent. And I think that the Draymond foul, I think that was a basketball play. I think the Dillon Brooks foul was a basketball play. I think we saw a play that almost mirrored that Dillon Brooks play when Giannis tried to chase down block Jason Tatum in game 3. It was a basketball play. Like, the takes are always, well, the player swiped at the head. Like, no, he swiped, but if a player's going up for the rim, a player swipes for a block, if you miss the ball, the body part you are most likely to make contact with, if not the arm, is the head, which is just an unfortunate incidental outcome of the play. I get it, but I don't think this stuff warrants players getting tossed. I don't know, like, with the whole jaw play with Jordan Poole grabbing his knee, there's no doubt in my mind that there was no malicious intent behind that. Absolutely not. Like, I think people are completely overreacting. Jaren Jackson and other Memphis players came out and said, like, no code has been broken. This is physical basketball. You're going for a steal. It's just made the game harder to watch, given how long these reviews are too.
Yeah, I feel like this year there's been more reviews than ever. That it's just like there's clearly not a flagrant foul.
15 real minutes. It's ridiculous. But because of the officiating, we have coaches, specifically Ime Udoka, who I really like as a coach. I think he's done a fantastic job, but openly saying that you are going to tell your guys to flop more. Like, what are we doing? Like, come on. Like, I think I'm not going to get on my Bucks high horse here, but I think that's the difference between just a team and like a championship team. A championship team loses that game, they're not going to go say, we're blaming the refs, we're going to flop. But it's all a product of the inconsistent officiating. The Bucks have gotten very favorable calls. The Bucks have lost calls that they shouldn't deserve. Just like every team. It's just been very
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about game 4 in Dallas with the Chris Paul fouls. Right. I mean, a lot of those were fouls, but like
correct. But like that
Luka definitely flops. Luka definitely flops a lot too.
I mean, Luka flopped a lot, and that was, obviously people listening are on Tuesday. That was Sunday. Luka, I love Luka. We all do, but he flops a lot. He complains less, but he still flops a lot. The 2 fouls that stuck out to me were Chris Paul's 4th foul, I believe, going into halftime.
Yeah, that one was
bad call, just straight up bad call. He had to put his hands behind his back.
Luka deserves an Oscar for that one. And to be fair, like knowing that Chris Paul had 3 at that time, I'm sure that was part of Luka's process the rest of the game. Yes. Yeah,
right. And the 6th foul on the baseline, like, it was a foul.
I'm not saying call that wasn't,
but you can't in the playoffs with that much time left, fouling out arguably the second most important player on the court. You can't foul him out on that. You can't do that. But I think that series has been really interesting because we've seen Luka just do what Luka does. He has the highest usage rate in the postseason at 38.2% right now.
It's funny. I feel like that's low too. I feel like it should be like 45.
Well, when you look at this team, but he's gotten, the role players on that team have been like the right place, right time kind of scenarios. Like Dorian Finney-Smith on Sunday, 8 of 12 from 3. Jalen Brunson having the blow up game in game 3.
What do you think of that too, both of you? Like, do you think Phoenix should just say, you know what? If Luka's gonna score 50, that's gonna happen, but we're not gonna let Dorian Finney-Smith hit 8. No, he's not gonna hit 8 threes again, maybe the rest of his career. But like the looks he's getting, the looks Reggie Bullock's getting, the looks that Maxi Kleber are getting are all wide open because Luka's drawing a double team. Do you think Phoenix should just say, you know what? We'll take our chances one-on-one against Luka. We're not gonna let them hit 20 plus threes and really just change the game that way.
Yeah, that's a good question because, like you said, they're selling out to kind of allow the opposite of what you said. They're selling out to stop Luka and let the other guys beat them. The other guys are beating them. So I'm curious, Zach, as with a coaching background, I'm curious to hear your take here because usually you hear the strategy sell out to do everything to stop the star and let the role players beat you. But if
teams started doing this against LeBron too for a while. They just said, you know what, we're not going to let J.R. Smith and Kevin Love and whoever else was there, Kyle Korver, hit wide open threes. We're going to have LeBron. If LeBron's going to score 40, he's going to score 40, but we're not going to let him get everybody else involved because then that team becomes much more difficult to defend.
Yeah, I'm curious, Zach, as your take, like, do you invert that strategy as a coach?
At times, yes, that is the correct thing to do. I think they should stick with what they're doing here.
And just
if Dorian Finney-Smith is going to make 8 threes a game and that's how we're going to lose.
You weren't destined to win that game in the first place. Yeah.
I'm fine with it. We got to keep, I guess I'll say this, just kind of maybe backtracking a little bit from what we've been talking about. The playoffs bring out the worst of basketball fans as reactionaries, as casuals, because we let 2 games, one way or the other, in any of these series. If a team goes up 2-0, whether they were expected to or not, that series is just over in everybody's minds. Or like, this guy has to be traded, or he has to be cut, or fire the coach. And it's just like, man, you see it, and you don't just see that in basketball either. Like, you see it in any sport where there's some sort of series, like hockey, right? Like, and in hockey, you see it even more because the teams in hockey come back from down 3-0. I wouldn't say frequently, but it's never happened in the NBA. It's happened multiple times in the last 10 years in the NHL. So it's just funny to watch everybody who doesn't, number one, go through the grind of the season and like know the ebbs and flows of these teams. And like, you're going to have a bad week. You're going to have a good week. And although like the margins are obviously much more thin in the playoffs, it's a best of 7 for a reason. Like, one game does not define the entire series, and it's just fun. It's fun to watch people's demeanor and the general talk around some of these series just shift. Sometimes like quarter to quarter, right? Like, first game, oh boy, like fucking, we forgot about Milwaukee. We were disrespecting Milwaukee. And like some of that is true, right? But then the next game, Boston fucking puts their thing down on him.
It's funny too because it's like the same. It's funny too because it's like the same way Dallas won too. Boston hit like insane amount of threes that game.
Yeah, and then
a series doesn't start until a team wins on the road. Right. We all know this, and that goes by the wayside way too often. Like, both Dallas and Phoenix have not lost at home in this series. Like, if Dallas wins Game 5, then we're talking. Now we're talking.
We were a tip in away from having a Celtics Game 3 win, and then the talk is all the Bucks are in trouble. Are the Celtics going to backdoor sweep here? Blah,
if there's 0.3 more seconds on the clock, we're talking about Milwaukee in trouble, literally
with their backs against the wall. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And so everybody just keep that in mind. Sometimes we got to take a deep breath during these playoff series that last 2 weeks. Right? If we go 7 games, it's going to take 2 weeks. So, getting back to Phoenix and Dallas, which was the initial question you guys asked me, I'm not worried. I had Phoenix in 6.
Devin Booker's post game, he's like not even remotely worried. He's like, okay,
yeah,
we're fine.
because he's, and while he's not yet an NBA champion, I do think he will get one in his career. May or may not be with the Suns. He's been through it. Like, they went through this last year, and they were up 2-0 in the finals. Devin Booker knows how long of a battle a series is, much less the 4 rounds that you have to go to get to the top of the NBA. So, I mean, these guys were maybe in the game is a bit too far. Like, it ended up being a 10-point margin, but like you didn't have Chris Paul the whole second half.
They kept cutting it to like 6, and then Dorian Finney-Smith would hit a 3, and then all of a sudden it was back up to and then all of a sudden it was back up to like 12.
Jetty hit a 3.
Jetty somehow hit a 3 still.
I think that they get back on track in a big way at home in Game 5, and I think Phoenix comes into Dallas and squeaks out a Game 6 victory and takes care of this then. But yeah, I mean, I would just, again, like I said, to kind of start this, I would stick with it if Reggie Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi Kleber, like, obviously you don't just give them open threes.
We still have 3 for 3.
Yes, we still have to make our rotations, but I don't want Luka, even with McCall Bridges on him, like, I don't want him to be able to go one-on-one all night, because he's still going to be able to pick apart your defense and find guys when they're open. He is a generational talent, a fantastic passer, and we will continue to see that whether they double him or not. So again, I would continue to try to make those role players on Dallas, who I think everybody agrees are below average compared to a lot of the other supporting casts that are still in the playoffs. Just from a raw talent perspective, like, I respect the hell out of the Dallas team, what Jason Kidd has done this year, especially on the defensive end. These guys have bought into what Jason Kidd is selling. But again, let's see those guys do it for 4 games. I don't think it's going to happen. Let's.
I want to talk about the Miami-Philadelphia series too. Maybe it's just because I've been paying more attention, but I feel like we've seen teams go back and forth between man and zone defense a lot more this postseason. And Philadelphia has been one of those teams where they start in man, and then 7 minutes into the game, all of a sudden you see them in the zone. And the last 2 games, Miami cannot hit a 3. Like, Tyler Hero struggled the last 2 games. They've been blitzing him a lot and doubling him right out of the pick and roll, so he can't get that quick release. Gabe Vincent struggled to shoot last game. Max Strus struggled. There was, I think, a report that Spoelstra was considering Duncan Robinson, who has not played in the series, could be available for their last game. He didn't step on the floor. Obviously, defensively, he is a massive liability. But if you're playing Matisse Thybulle, I think Spoelstra needs to just say, okay, Matisse is on the floor. Let me put Duncan Robinson in. Because they're playing a lot of zone when Matisse is on the floor anyway. And you can just put Robinson on Matisse. Don't have to worry about him defensively. And because they just need, Miami led the NBA in 3-point field goal percentage this season. But the last couple games in the series, they've really struggled. It's been Jimmy Butler just dominating in the mid-range game, getting to the free throw line. That's even kept them in games. Jimmy Butler's not playing as good as he is. They're not just losing these last 2 games. They're getting destroyed because Bam struggled with the adjusting from DeAndre Jordan and Paul Reed to Joel Embiid. Lowry, I don't know. We haven't talked about it. I don't think Lowry's going to play tomorrow. That hamstring is really bothering him. He pulled up on it multiple times.
Yeah.
So,
and he said he's hopeful to play.
I don't think he's going to play, man.
The thing is, in the same report, he complained about he's never dealt with a soft tissue injury before. It's lingering more than he thought. He's clearly very uncomfortable.
And when he pulled up on it the first time,
Vincent and Tyler Hero.
Yeah, and when he pulled up on it on what was it, Monday or Sunday? That game was. It was on a routine wide open layup. It wasn't like he was making this crazy athletic. It was, so it's clearly still bothering him. But what do you think Miami has to do to adjust to Embiid being back? Because we saw Embiid defend Oladipo on the perimeter and just, he couldn't even get past Embiid. He changes everything, and that's affecting Bam. That's affecting everything else. But you can also say, it's weird with Miami. They've lost the last 2. And you can say, okay, if Jimmy Butler doesn't do this, they even lose more. But you could also say they're shooting well below their head and under where the expectation from 3. So if everything kind of balances out, I think the series obviously got way more interesting the last 2 games.
Joe, did you just see Tony Brothers' T? Yeah, I see your face.
Yeah, man.
What I miss? I
doing?
Tony Brothers teed Giannis for staring down Horford.
Giannis just dunked all over Al Horford and like wasn't hanging on the rim. Like Giannis, you know how many times Giannis done that same mean mug in both playoff and regular season games? Like, what are we doing? That is a prime example of like, dude, Tony Brothers shouldn't even be reffing NBA games, and I know Zach agrees with this, but like, Tony Brothers clearly has Boston money line in this game, has some type of calling with his boy Donnie, but like, dear Lord, let these guys play basketball. It's annoying.
It's pretty.
But anyways, yes, I like the thing that stuck out to like. I'm actually like, I wrote this as I started writing the NBA picks piece for Tuesday. Like, the Heat are typically, especially offensively, one of the most well-rounded units in basketball, where any given night, you know, you might have Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero. We've seen games where Max Strus leads the team in scoring, Duncan Robinson, Kyle Lowry. Like, they have so many guys that are capable of going out, shooting 6 of 10 from 3, getting their way inside. Jimmy Butler has been like the only reliable asset. Like Bam to an
Did
extent,
you watch the game on Sunday? He was unbelievable.
Yeah,
like,
he was going. This is like bubble Jimmy Butler all over.
Dude, he was going at Embiid, hitting him with like these patient post moves, and just like it was.
He's shooting over 35% from 3 and 82% from the line right now, and those are his biggest nights. He's shooting over 53% from the field. So like, I have been one of the biggest Jimmy Butler critics in terms of efficiency and his ability to carry a team, and he's proving me wrong right now. I'm not saying he is going to carry this team out of the East or to a or to a championship, but he's doing far more than Jason Tatum shown he's doing right now. He's doing far more than, I mean, James Harden, obviously, until the last 2 minutes of the game yesterday. But the Heat are going to need Tyler Hero to step up. They're going to need more from Bam, more consistency more than anything. And then especially if Lowry's out, like, Gabe Vincent's serviceable, but I do think you need to kind of rotate in a Duncan Robinson. Victor Oladipo has been good in his minutes too, but the minutes in themselves have been very inconsistent. So the rotation's confusing me a little bit.
Bam struggled offensively a little bit. No, I want more than a little bit since Embiid's been back. But the second half,
understandable, I guess.
The second half of Game 4, he was like not letting Embiid get to a spot. Like he was really impressive on the defensive end. And not gonna lie, it's a huge reason why the Embiid under for points. Sorry, fellas, but hold on.
So, oh my God, don't talk to Stefano about this because we were like rage texting each other last night.
When you had 24.5, right?
I had 2 units on 24.5, 1 unit on 30 plus, half a unit on 35 plus.
He had 15
out of the gate. And he had 15 in the first quarter.
Oh, really?
And I was like, and I was like, oh my God, like,
easy.
I was like, okay.
We saw Miami went with the Toronto approach in that first half. If you recall, they had a lot of Bam on the bench, and they went small and versatile and athletic, and they just doubled and trapped Embiid. But the problem was the first half, Embiid got to a spot literally next to the basket, and Harden just throw up lobs over Oladipo, over whoever, and he would dunk it. The second half, we saw more Bam. Bam was fronting him like at like almost the 3-point line. He was like, "You're not getting to the post. You're not getting to the elbow." And then James Harden was like, "Oh, I can still play basketball at a very high level," and just showed vintage James Harden. I think this series is so interesting now, especially going back to Miami and with Kyle Lowry potentially not playing. Like, Miami's going to shoot better from 3. They're going to get back to where they're normally at, but maybe they need Duncan Robinson to get there, who, when you're playing a team that's going to a lot of zone defense, that helps to have somebody you can make the case as like a top 5 3-point shooter in the entire league.
Yeah.
What do you think of the series, Zach?
I mean, to be honest, I had to rewatch Game 4 this morning because I was doing a little Austin FC last night. Still in second place in the MLS, so took the L. It's a tough one. Had our backup keeper in there. A couple other things that I won't get into with some domestic violence allegations that proved to be false, and a lot of people. Yeah, Joe, I said, it was not great. Weird vibes in the stadium yesterday, but man, I wish I could change my pick on this series. I had Miami in 5. I wasn't sure. Part of that was Embiid, not sure when he was going to come back. I would like to think that if I knew he was back in game 3, I would have said Miami in 6. But now I think this is going 7. And I really don't have a lean on which team I think is going to win. Because Adam, like you said, like Lowry, and I was touting Lowry Sunday morning on the stream with David. He's clearly not right. And I do think there's a good chance he could sit tomorrow. Because if you can give him 96 hours off, maybe he gets closer to the Kyle Lowry that maybe not that we have like known from Toronto Kyle Lowry, but a guy who can make it up and down the court for 5 minutes without looking like he needs to not just come out of the game, but go to the locker room. If Lowry is just this version of Lowry that's hobbled, I have a hard time not saying that the Sixers are going to come back and win this. But they're going to have to win at least one of those games on the road.
Especially when Danny Green's all of a sudden a time machine.
Hey, yeah, Danny Green is he's streaky, man.
Guy forgot how to walk. He can't walk normal.
I did notice that every time
guy walks he walks like Max walks around my house. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, man. Danny Green gets a lot of shit. Really wherever he stops at times because of how streaky he is.
Except
he
Cleveland.
Got it from
except for Cleveland.
The most criticism he got in Cleveland was on his dance moves because that's pretty much all he did in Cleveland. But he got it from the Spurs fan base at times. He also set finals records at the time for threes made in a finals series. He got it in Toronto when he wasn't shooting well. He was there 1 year. He got it in LA because in that bubble finals he had some very wide open missed shots. And he gets it in Philadelphia now. But the guy steps up and hits big shots, and he's done it throughout his career. So I'm glad to see that he's, playing a vital role here for the Sixers and their revival in the series. And again, we talked a lot about Embiid at the top. Big shout out to him. The guy's a fucking warrior, man. Clearly playing through multiple injuries. I cannot imagine that I would be I like to consider myself like not a wuss. I won't say I'm a tough guy when it came to like playing through some injuries. Fellas, I don't think I'm going out there with an orbital fracture and playing basketball.
Not to mention the thumb, too.
Yeah, and like that was clearly hampering him going back to the Toronto series. But I think they're going to win, man. Like,
yeah, I have Philly in 7 now.
Dude, in Philly, like, Bam, you saw it, especially in game 3, like he realized, oh shit, like this isn't fucking Paul Reed and DeAndre Jordan and Georges Niang anymore. This is
the most dominant center in the NBA. Like,
yeah, and he's so physically imposing even at the, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think Embiid is? 82% healthy?
Yeah, I was going to say 75, 80%.
I would say so. Yeah. I was going to say 70.
Yeah, you see, you like how I try to nail it right on the number, hence like the 82. Not going in multiples.
See, my OCD doesn't allow me to veer off either. Like 60, 65, 70, 75. I can't veer off that path. Can't do it.
Yeah. So yeah, man. It has quickly turned into a series that it's not aesthetically pleasing to watch, but from a competitive standpoint, this series is great. I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Any other closing thoughts on another series we haven't touched on? We kind of touched on most of the series, I feel like. We'll see what happens with the games that are being played as we record this podcast. I think the Milwaukee game, almost the start of the fourth quarter. And then obviously Memphis Golden State later on. It's going to be very interesting to see if Memphis wins without Ja again, because like they go down 3-1 to Golden State. It's probably over.
Definitely over.
Yeah, but like there's probably going to be a lot of like basketball fans that have not realized how good this team has been without Ja, that just see, okay, Ja's going to be ruled out. This game's going to be a blowout.
Record-wise, they were much better.
Right. Like,
right? And not an insignificant
This game
sample.
could easily blow out, right? Golden State at home. We saw what happened last game. We saw what can happen, especially if they get that vintage Golden State third quarter and all of a sudden they're up by 22 points. But I also would not be surprised. Like, I wouldn't pick them to win, but like Memphis has shown the ability to keep games close and win games without Ja. And I have to say, like, getting Dylan Brooks back and Tyus Jones, I think Eddie was talking about this on the stream with you today, Zach. Mm-hmm. Defensively, they're probably going to be better tonight.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, getting Dylan Brooks back is...
Who's been guarding Steph Curry when he's been on the floor in the series. They've been using him as a primary defender, which is obviously massive.
Well, and I think I'm with you, Adam, where, like, I'm not picking the Grizzlies to win tonight, but I'm certainly taking the 10 points on the spread with the Grizzlies if I'm betting tonight.
That's a lot. That is a lot.
I mean, dude, they were 20
They were
and
20 and
5.
2. They were 20 and 2. Or that was 22.
At one point. They lost the last. So
it was 20. It was 25 games.
You're right.
He sat 2 games in late April. With, I think, was the ankle tweak, I think.
Yeah.
But he was like legitimately like banged up a little bit, sat 2, and then the final game of the season when they sat everybody. So like you said, they started 20 and 2 without Ja. And again, that is a quarter of the season. That's not a small sample size. And 36 and 21 with him. So this team can absolutely still compete without Ja Morant. I think they're going to have a hard time finding the offensive, specifically like the scoring load.
Especially with Desmond Bane's back. He's clear. Speaking of guys that aren't healthy, right? Like yeah.
He doesn't look
at
like
how
himself.
like he's playing so passive.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I will say to his credit, Jaren Jackson's been great this series. Couldn't stay on the court in the first series.
Mm-hmm. This is a better series for him because he gets Draymond sits off him.
This is why I liked Memphis going into I remember like weeks ago I said if Memphis and Golden State play in the playoffs, I think Memphis could win in 7. They match up really well. Now obviously Ja not playing hurts, but like matchup wise, this is why I like this playoff matchup because Jaren Jackson Jr. can stay on the floor. At least has a better chance to. But I'm excited to watch a game. Like we've seen a lot of fast pace, high energy from both those teams. But I want to make sure Joe has time to get out of here to watch the end of this Milwaukee game.
Ooh, it is the fourth quarter. Here we go, or almost the fourth quarter.
Maybe about 5 minutes left in the third, but it's 4-point game
by 6.
I'm ahead of you. Sorry, keep forgetting.
I hate YouTube TV, man.
I got 2 things that I'll hold Joe here for just for another minute. Number one, we can shout out Fast Eddie Fear because talking about the Grizzlies game tonight. Fast Eddie Fear learned today that Tyus Jones and Trey Jones were brothers.
What?
So that was pretty much everybody's.
The man that knows
the walking encyclopedia.
Right, the walking. When it comes to basketball, I don't know if I've met someone with a wealth of knowledge.
The Discord was funny too. It was like, just wait till Eddie learns that the Plumleys are related and stuff like that.
The Discord was on fire today.
Cody Zeller and Tyler Zeller?
Brooke and Robin Lopez are related?
It's exactly what the Discord was. It was great.
So the second thing is, I was sitting here playing with the trade machine.
There we go.
Rudy Gobert to OKC.
Okay.
It's fucking hard, fellas, because they have Shea on 30 mil a year.
Yeah.
Then you dropped
to paid that much.
Yeah, well, so I think the extension just kicked in this coming
next year.
Season,
Next year. Yeah.
Derek Favors on $10 million expiring. Then you've got Giddey, who you're not moving. Baisley all the way down at $4 million. So the rest of this roster is $4 million and below. Gobert on $38 million. It's hard to match the salary.
It's tough to match that, man.
So like the trades are not super realistic right now. And here's the thing.
It'll be tough to match Mitchell if you want to use that example too. Like they can't match any Max player right now.
So you would they can. They can. You can get it done. So here's how ugly this trade is if you go straight up. Gobert by himself going to the Thunder. The Jazz take back the contracts of Derek Favors, Mike Muscala, Darius Bazley, Ty Jerome, Teo Maledon, and Jeremiah Robinson Earl. And then they get 4 first-round picks, which I think takes the first-round pick count over the next 8 years for the Thunder from like fucking 22 to 18. So they're fine. So like you can do that. Obviously the Jazz there, I guess you would probably, you would keep Teo Maledon, maybe Jerome, Jeremiah Robinson Earl on the rookie deal, maybe Bazley as kind of a backup there. But getting the 4 first rounders for Rudy, that's pretty nice. If you're rebuilding. I did add a third team in for another trade, which almost equally as gross, but Thunder get Rudy Gobert, Jazz get Favors, Muscala, Basley, Maladon, and Gordon Hayward, plus 3 firsts. Hornets get Jerome, Veit Krejci, Jeremiah Robinson, Earl, and they get 3 firsts. Maybe that's a little bit much. Maybe it should be 2 firsts and a second. And the Thunder get Gobert. I did try to do one with the Spurs. Nothing makes sense there, so I didn't quite go that far. But the most important thing here, guys, that is actually interesting, and I think kind of hamstrings what Sam Presti wants to do. $27.4 million in dead cap for Kemba Walker next year.
Oh.
So
whoa.
Almost.
He's going
almost
like
a
long
third.
Tigers or whatever they're.
Almost a third of your cap next year for OKC is tied up with Kemba Walker still. So like, again, they have that 30 mil on Shea and everything else. So you would think they have cap space. They really don't. So it may be another year that we just see Presti continue to accumulate. Unless you do some wild fucking 6-for-1 with 4 first-round picks type of trade, which I think is probably pretty far-fetched. So interesting. I did not think about Kemba Walker's dead cap, and I certainly would not have thought it would be that high.
No guy.
Before we get out of here, give me, if it's changed at all, your finals predictions. I'm going Golden State winning it all. I think the emergence of Jordan Poole the last month, even though he's been great all season, but especially the last month, I think that's enough to where I'm just like, this team, especially like, is Gary Payton done for the playoffs, or is it just been confirmed? Obviously he's done for the series.
Be able to come back, hypothetically, like
it'll be tough.
Finals.
Late next round or finals.
But I just think with Jordan Poole's emergence, and like, here's the other thing. I don't know if we'll see it again. I don't know if we'll see like 2017 Klay Thompson again. But Klay hasn't even really been Klay that much. And if that happens, good luck. Just good luck. So I'm changing my pick. I'm going Golden State. I think they're just too talented. They're too loaded.
I'm still going. My pick was Milwaukee over Golden State. I'm doing the same thing.
I was Milwaukee over Phoenix, and I will stick with it. I'm not surprised if Golden State gets there either.
Right.
Though. Obviously, I echo pretty much everything you just said there, Adam. And I'm just saying, man, is there any other podcast in the world where you get Kemba Walker dead cap talk in May? I'm just saying, we cover every nook and cranny of the NBA here.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Fun, always fun talking hoops with you guys. Let's do this again sometime.
Let's do it. I'm gonna go crop Jason Tatum onto Giannis holding his baby right now. So
Joe, doing the important work. Guys, we have been requested, by the way, by multiple subs to get a live stream going soon. So
we could do that for Game 5 of the Milwaukee series.
We could. I mean, we could also see, maybe
Milwaukee, by the way, now
Philly.
up 11.
We've got a lot of Philly. We've got a lot of Philly contingent here in the FTN NBA community. Maybe we could have some Philly subs. On
we could take a vote in Discord, but we'll definitely do it. I think those are a lot of fun. We can watch the game, talk in Discord, and chat, everything like that. Milwaukee up 11. We'll see if they can hold on. Joe, good luck. Congratulations again.
Sure.
Zach, always a pleasure. Thanks for listening to the FTN NBA podcast. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the FTN NBA podcast with Adam, Joe, and Zach. Make sure to follow your hosts on Twitter at APPfeifer24, at JMetz34, and at KawaisenbergDFS. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.